In this video, I would like to show you an absolutely incredible game which was played by Boris Spassky, the 10th world champion who passed away earlier this week at the age of 88. He was an absolutely incredible player, as I said, world champion between 1969 and 1972. And this game, the one I'm going to show you, was played when he was at his prime. It was played in 1970. He's playing with the black pieces against Larsen, who was also one of the strongest players at that time, in a match which was later called the match of the century, in which a team of the Soviet Union was playing against players from other parts of the world. Spassky, of course, playing for the team of the Soviet Union. And it's a short but very interesting game. So let's have a look. Larsen opens the game with a very original approach. That's what he was famous for. That he played 1b3, and also this move was later named after him. Spassky replied with e5, bishop b2, attacking the pawn on e5. Now knight c6. And actually, interestingly, back in the days, this was a very unusual way of playing. And for many years, okay, 1b3 was not often seen. But these days, at the very top, because so many openings have been heavily analyzed, this line with 1b3 is actually becoming more and more popular. These days, people play e3 with the idea to go bishop b5 and increase the pressure on the knight and also against the pawn on e5. Larsen played back then the move c4, knight f6. And okay, now it looks more like an English opening with a pawn on c4. And there are a lot of different ways of playing, like you can go g3 or you can maybe go e3. The next move by Larsen is super provocative. He played her knight f3 to attack the pawn, which looks very, very natural. But the problem is that it does give black the chance to grab space in the center with gain of time, hitting the knight on f3. And well, the knight comes to d4, offering the exchange of knights. And well, black decided here to respond with bishop c5, developing with tempo, adding pressure to that knight on d4. And how is white going to deal with it? Well, I think Larsen's next move, it's something I would never recommend. People later decided here to play this move, knight f5, to attack the pawn on g7. Super interesting position. Black can, for instance, castle with the idea to play d5 next and open up the path to hit the knight on f5 with the bishop. Other people have even played the immediate d5, and that allows knight takes g7. It's an absolute mess. Let's not get into there. But Larsen, instead of playing knight f5, decided here to take on c6. Why is this a positional mistake? Normally, we know the rule that you should capture towards the center. Like if you take with the b pawn, you have ideas to occupy the center very quickly with d5. But instead, Spassky played here d takes c6, capturing away from the center, which of course will no longer help black to occupy the center with all the pawns, but it does accelerate his development. After the move e3, the bishop was developed to f5, overprotecting the pawn on e4. And the pawn on e4 is very important, as it does prevent white from grabbing space in the center. d4 can never be played because of capturing en passant. So white has to opt for a very modest setup now. Queen c2, queen e7. Very nice move. Once again, overprotecting the pawn on e4. Bishop goes to e2. And now one of the benefits of having recaptured away from the center with the d-pawn is that now you can castle queenside, which is absolutely great because your king is very nicely placed. It's your king is even safer than normal with this double pawn. But more importantly, you also do have a half open d-file. So you bring your king into safety, and at the same time, that rook is brilliantly placed on that part of the board. Now, what should white do? I would say black is very, very comfortable here. But if white is going to play something like knight c3, maybe play a3, b4, grabbing some space on the queen side, it's still a game. But instead, there followed here this move. Larsen played a move f4, which is a way trying to grab space on the king side. And obviously, capturing en passant cannot be recommended as it hangs the bishop on f5 with check. Black is losing a piece. So let's take that back. And now, why is f4 such a mistake? Well, look at that king. It is getting more and more exposed. And with the move knight g4, black is placing its cards on the table as the queen is coming to h4 very quickly. And well, you don't want to allow that when the king is there. It's really vulnerable. If you take on g4, the knight, there can also follow queen h4. Intermediate check. If you block it, queen takes g4. Look at those light squares. The queen can come in, the bishop can come in. That's not going to be a lot of fun. So also the possibility to castle kingside, trying to get out of the center, cannot be recommended, as it does allow a beautiful strike here with rook takes d2, and black is crashing through the position here. If you take with the queen, this bishop takes e3 with a double attack, you're winning the queen, while the alternative to take with the knight gives black the chance to take with the knight on e3. You're threatening the queen on c2, you're threatening the rook, the diagonal will be open, the queen can come in. This is not something white is going to survive. So white already on move 10 is in very deep trouble. Therefore, Larsen decided here to play g3 to prevent that move queen h4. But now, very simple chess, h5. You just want to open up the position, make use of that hook, and ensure that the rook is going to put pressure down the h-file. White played the move h3 to attack the knight. If the knight goes back, let's say to f6, and later you play h4, white can keep the position close with g4. That is the idea behind it. But Spassky's, his next move, is an absolute shocker. He played here h4. And at this point, Larsen fought for more than an hour on his next move. But that time investment, it's coming too late. His position is really bad, if not just completely lost. The knight on g4 can be captured. It was captured with the h-pawn. You may even take with the bishop, but it will lead to very similar play as after the sacrifice. You take with the pawn on g3. You're opening up that side of the board. Trading of rooks is never going to be an option for white, as the black rook will eventually invade. And the king cannot get out of the center. Your knight is still on b1. A lot of problems here. Let's go back. An alternative is something like to take on h4. Well, not really. Cannot really recommend it. It's knight takes e3, and you're breaking through. Queen takes h4 is a threat. You're threatening to take the queen as well. If you take the knight, queen takes h4 check. The idea is that the d file has been opened now, so the king can't go there. If you go to f1, it's bishop takes h3 with check, and mate in a few is going to follow with the queen and rook coming into the attack. So let's see now what happened in the game after pawn takes g4. White is up a piece, but there is h takes g3. And like in the other line, trading of the rooks on h8 cannot be really recommended. For instance, if you take the bishop, it's a rook h1 check, and well, if you block the check with your bishop, which is the only move, there follows g2, and there are so many threats, threatening mate, getting a new queen, and so on. So that's why, instead of giving up the h-file, white played here rook to g1. And maybe Larsen thought that he is about to consolidate his position. After all, he's a piece up, and there are no immediate threats. But black actually has a number of good moves to give the attack a new impulse, like you may consider getting your queen into the attack. But the next move, that move has gone into the history books on chess, because again, after a spectacular piece sacrifice, there follows another stunning rook sacrifice. Rook h1, brilliant deflection idea. You're about to take the rook, and after rook takes h1, you push the pawn to g2, hitting the rook, threatening to get a new queen, and the rook, well, it got to stay on the first rank. If you go to g1, for instance, was not played in the game, there will follow queen h4 check, and the king has to go to d1. It's the only square available. And now a nice idea is to play queen h1, sacrificing the queen, although we cannot even call it a sacrifice. You're threatening to take the rook with mate to follow. If you take the queen, it's taking the rook, getting a new queen, bishop f1, queen takes f1, it's checkmate. So rook g1 is not an option. Instead, Larsen decided here to play the move rook to f1. But now, rather than taking the rook immediately, let's activate our most important piece, the queen. We can do that with a check. And, well, it doesn't make sense to block here with a rook, as it does give black the chance to promote the g-pawn with mate to come. There followed the move king to d1. And after g takes f1, getting a new queen, it is time to resign, which is what Bent Larsen did here. After 17 moves, black managed to win that game. The point is, if you take the queen, you take with the bishop on g4 with check. And if you block that check with your bishop, it's queen h1, checkmate. The king can't go anywhere. You cannot block with the bishop because the bishop is pinned. The alternative is to try to run away with the king over to the queen side, but you cannot escape. All those pieces are obstructing the king, and after queen e1, it is in fact checkmate. One move later, in fact, queen d1, queen takes d1, and it's game over. So what an incredible game. You see how important it is to fight for the center. You don't even always have to occupy the center with all your pawns, but if you are opening up the center for your pieces, you can see how much piece activity black managed to obtain. And well, the way to exploit it, to take advantage of it, is of course to open the sacrifice with brutal force, to sacrifice pieces in order to gain access to the white king. Hopefully you enjoyed this game, and if so, make sure to come back to the channel, and you can do that by turn on the notifications, give this video a like, and hit the subscribe button. And then I say thank you very much for supporting my channel, and I will see you very soon again. Bye bye.